Greetings and welcome to this episode on Geeks First. Today, we speculate about all the goodies that might be inside Outsiders from my collection of equipment and my spreadsheet. Hopefully this information finds you well. All that and more right now. Hey, thanks for tuning in today. This episode is going to be a little bit different. We're trying out some new technologies and we're going to see whether or not they work for what we're trying to accomplish. What we're going to start looking at today is we're going to go ahead and jump into a spreadsheet that I've been maintaining since the kind of beginning of when I started to want to understand what heroes had what equipment, which then allowed me to kind of start speculating on what might be in upcoming sets. Now, there is a upcoming tracker on February, which I've done an interview with Philip. You can check that out over here. But this sheet is separate from the official or unofficial spreadsheet tracker that they have out on February of cards. This is just simply a way for me to collect data and understand how it might look if heroes get certain pieces of gear. So let's go ahead and jump right into that. All right, so for those of you that have never seen this before, I'm going to be looking at it on the laptop in front of me, but we're also going to go ahead and display what we're seeing here so that you'll be able to check it out. Now, what I would like to point out is that there is kind of 2 or 3 ways you can look at this data. You can look at it from a standpoint of who has what piece of equipment in a class. So as an example, I have in here the generic type of gear, which would work for every class. I have the total number of legendaries, majestics, rares, and commons within the individual set. And as you look, so as an example with legs under generic here, the legs are coded in a blue, which means that the highest level rarity item in the game to date is a rare in the generic foot slot. Legs, technically, but you get the idea. So when we look at chest, arms, and head, as well as offhand, that is going to give us some data. Now, to make sure I can show what I'm looking at here, I'm going to go ahead and change up one quick thing. Boop, boop. This way I can guarantee I know what we're staring at, and I can make sure we're not missing any data. So as you start here, if we look at the generic, we can see that the legs is a rare, a chest is legendary, the arms have a majestic, and the head is going to also be a legendary. Now, some of these might have more than one legendary. Good example of this would be, well, let's see here. So there is a total of 3 legendaries, which means that if you look at chest here, you have the tunic, that's legendary, and then in the head you have Arknight Skullcap, which is legendary, and Crown of Dominion, which is also legendary. So I've not really parse this out too much further, but it's there. So with that backstory in place, this can be kind of spread out a little bit more to give you a better picture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll my head to a different location here so that you can kind of see a little bit more across the top. And what I'd like to do is have enough of this zoomed out so that you can kind of get a photo view of what I'm looking at. And that should be good. Now it's a little bit tiny, but it should serve the purpose we're looking for. All right, so as you can see, we have generic, brute, guardian, illusionist, mechanologist. Now the classes on the side over here are classes that have officially been released. Ninja, ranger, ruin blade, warrior, wizard. Draconic is kind of a weird one because technically it is a talent, but I believe there is actually a class component from it because there is a piece of equipment that is silken form. It's a common, so that's why it's on this list. Same with Draconic Ninja, which is the keyword combined, which means that you can only use Heatwave if you are a Draconic and Ninja on the same card. Now, this kind of began to start speculating in Uprising as well as even in Dynasty when they started some of this multi-class, especially with like the Emperor is a great example. Because that gives the flexibility to put multiple classes together and allow for the ability for Flesh and Blood to not throw everything in a generic, which is going to affect every class, but in this case, you'll be able to affect a subclass of that. Now, with Outsiders being a draftable set, one of the things we want to consider is that because it's draftable, there needs to be an experience within that set that they're aiming to achieve, as well as, I would imagine, cards that are going to assist in both Blitz and CC, meaning that those cards are going to functionally aid those classes in becoming better at a certain area. So if we zoom in more specifically, let's go ahead and take a gander here at the classes that are coming up in Outsiders. We have confirmed Ninja, we've confirmed Ranger, and we've confirmed Assassin. Now when we zoom in on Ninja, there is only a total of 2 legendaries, 2 majestics, and technically 2 commons. So you have in the slot for legs, you have Breeze Rider Boots, which is a majestic. In the chest, you have Blazing Yori, which was actually a recent addition in Dynasty. And then you have the Tiger Stripe Shuko, which is the arms location, and that came out in, I believe that was Uprising. And then you have Mask of Momentum, which is all the way back from WTR. Now, if you look at that, that basically means that there are pieces of equipment that are above the rare or common level across the entire board for Ninja. But that means that if I had to start looking, I would start focusing on maybe they would do something with Ninja in the, let's say, legs or chest as an option. Now, when we look at Ranger, you have Perch Grapplers. They actually do not officially have a Ranger chest piece at this point. That's why it's purple. That purple indicates that I don't have an item in that slot at this point in time. Then you have the Bullseye Bracers in your arms, and then in your head here you have the Mask of Momentum. The New Horizon, the one that shot through like stonks recently. So there's also this new column I had to add, and I'm calling this specialty slot. This was not here in my prior videos, but this is because of the release of the brand new quiver from Mark Poole, and it is a quiver. It is a Ranger quiver. Specifically, it doesn't actually say Ranger, so I'm going to pull this up because it is kind of an interesting wording. So at the bottom, it is a Ranger Equipment Dash Quiver, which then would lock it into the class Ranger, which is why it's on this line. But the reason I put it in specialty is because the quiver can be equipped in a weapon zone in addition to the bow. And that is why I've now dubbed a new specialty zone in this area because of that flexibility, which means it actually opens up the possibility of interesting things like for later sets, possibly like maybe even a mechanologist battery pack, or maybe like some sort of alchemist potion location. That's something that I don't, or an alchemist, maybe like an add-on, or like maybe a poison pill for, an assassin. I have no idea. Obviously, these are just all speculative things here, but it's interesting because that now opens up the ability to leverage that zone in a different capacity than we've thought of traditionally, and these are your zones and you're locked into those zones. So kudos to LSS for thinking of that and maybe adding some flexible ways to add unique abilities in the future. So I look forward to that. But within Ranger, like I said, they are currently missing their chest. Now, if we zoom down to Assassin, obviously a brand new class released in Dynasty. That was a supplemental set. And the only legendary they have is in their feet, the Black Tech Whispers. And obviously that is a personal favorite card at the moment. I really enjoy the artwork, and it seems like it's a class must-have for certain gameplay styles within that. Now, they do not currently have a chest, they currently don't have an arms, and they do have a head, which is only a majestic, and that is the Mask of Perdition, but they don't have any offhands just yet. So knowing this, that opens up a couple of options. Now, I have the 5 legendary picks. I have some thoughts on what they could be. So let me go ahead and start unhiding this text here as we begin to discuss what the options may be for Outsiders. So I'm going to zoom in here and give us a little bit more way to go. Now, as I kind of look, the individual classes, and I have apparently overrode one of my fields. Oh no. Editing Jake, pause. All right, sorry about that. So we actually are going to reveal here, I hit something. So we have generic, ninja, assassin, and ranger. Those are the classes, or technically the generic will be in possibly any set, theoretically, but you have the 3 classes that have been confirmed so far, ninja, assassin, and ranger. Within these classes, there's a couple of interesting slots that are open that do not currently have a legendary that we could begin to look at and kind of break down what we might think. In the generic slot, that leaves the legs and the arms. In the ninja slot, that leaves the legs and the chest. And in the assassin slot, that leaves the chest, arms, and head. And rangers is legs, chest, and arms. Now, that kind of makes it pretty interesting overall, because if we think about this, there could be some options where, I don't know, again, this shouldn't be a 6. This would be like a 2. So Apparently, I must have clicked buttons. Apologies. Anyways, I could foresee the breakdown being something like either one or two generics, one ninja, one assassin, and one ranger. That would give you the 5. Or it could be something a little bit more interesting, and that's where my spicy takes come in. So I'd imagine that based on prior sets, it seems that there's at least one generic that gets released every set to not only help supplement that set, but maybe help other classes that don't have it. So I could foresee a generic arms or legs being a prime pick choice for something to come out in Outsiders. Now, as we kind of evaluate on my spicy takes here, we're going to go ahead and reveal. So we're going to go ahead and just reveal this as a giant bubble because I think after looking at the editing here, something got overwritten, but that's fine. So here are the spicy takes that I have. Now, inside of the generic class, we have the opportunity to possibly look at maybe a one-handed ninja or assassin weapon. Now, beforehand, there already were one-handed weapons for the ninja in the Kadachi, as well as the, not the Black Tech Whisperers, I apologize, but the Spider's Bites. They're 2 one-handed weapons. So if you look at the one-handed weapons, there might be a generic one-handed weapon that could be used then across multiple classes, or in this case, maybe a combined ninja and assassin weapon that is singly one hand but would restrict it to those classes. That's one option that you could see. Something else that's possible would be a dual class legs or chest piece of equipment that would span the 2 classes between the aforementioned ninja, which would need the legs, and the ranger, which would need the chest. So that way it really fills 2 birds with 1 stone, but locks those abilities within those 2 classes. So something else to think. Now, I highly doubt we're going to see a triple class here, but it is interesting to note that at this point in Flesh and Blood's release cycle, that chest is missing from ninja, assassin, and ranger. So wouldn't it be interesting to see a triple chest that could be used by assassin, ninja, and ranger that have some common thread? I think it would be very, very spicy to see something like that. I don't know if it'll happen, but that would be something that I was trying to think of. Now, rangers are missing their arms. So in an idea, because that slot has truthfully nothing at all, we could easily see a lower tier Majestic or Common or even a token exist in this set to fill that slot, which I would imagine by the end of Outsiders, every slot that's blank between the Ranger and Assassin will have some basic piece of equipment. That I would almost guarantee. Yes, I used the G word there. When you look at this, though, you could have a Solo Ranger Arms card that could be a legendary because that literally has nothing in the slot. Also, there might be something interesting with a piece of equipment that would give you some sort of modal stealth benefit and tying that back to the class that maybe is the Assassin or the Ranger, because I don't necessarily see Benji or Katsu leveraging the stealth mechanic, or maybe they would, and then obviously all my theories go out the window. But overall, this list here is pretty much a comprehensive list. Now you might be saying, well, what about all the talents? Well, there's a whole separate section over here that I have that contains those talents from Earth, Elemental, Ice, Lightning, Shadow, Draconic, and Royal. There could also be some spicy new bits of information that come out within some of these in later sets, but I don't see that happening in Outsiders because none of these that I'm aware of, or none of these talents, seem to exist. Now, they might throw something interesting in, such as maybe a elemental style of ninja. So they might have, theoretically, a draconic or maybe even a royal ninja assassin, or I could see these, but I don't see a shadow, a lightning, a light, or elemental or earth in this set because they don't seem to really go with the thought process of what they're aiming for in this set. Now, this has been a short video on my thoughts. All right, so this has been a short video on my thoughts of what might be coming in the new Outsiders set. I really appreciate you sticking through this and watching this, as well as my little hilarious card frame here. Shout out to some of those custom fab card creators out there, because that's some of the tools that they use, so that's pretty neat. I'll be looking at that in a future video as well. Until then, like, share, subscribe, hit that bell button for more content, and again, if you need singles, go to your local game store, or if you want and you don't have that locally, go reach out to somebody on Discord or even myself. We have options as singles, or even Flukenbox now has his shop available over in the Australian region, so you can reach out to him if you're in the, I think it would be EMEA, APAC, or Oceania region. He'd probably be a good reference since there is no TCG player, or at least it seems that it's harder to get it over there. So again, if you're looking for some of those singles, try to find folks that are in the community. They should be able to help you out. And until next time, have a fantastic day. I'll catch you on the next episode. Peace out. Your captain. Your captain. That boy, oh boy, why is this? What is 55? I have what? Please tell me all this shit is still here. Okay, that is all right. All right. So we're gonna Z and Z.